Mm?
All righty. All right, awesome. So let's get started. So to get us started, I'm going to introduce myself. Some of you already know me, and some of you, this is our first time meeting. So very excited to meet all of you. But my name is Slema. I am a technical selection specialist here at App Academy. I personally went through App Academy. Some of you got the chance to work hand in hand with me during App Academy. Others unfortunately, we haven't got to cross paths just yet, but very exciting. It's really nice to hear that you guys all made it through App Academy. I know that was quite a journey for me. But yeah, I would love to hear your journeys across this whole career shift that we've all done. And I would love to start off by just going around introducing one another. So if we can just go around the panelists, we can start off with Megan. And maybe you can just start us off, tell us your name, your current city, and your current role, what you're doing now after App Academy.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Megan, and I currently live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm working, my position is fully remote. So I'm working for a small startup company called Data Grow. They're based in the Philadelphia area as a full stack engineer.
All right, awesome to hear that. All right, we're gonna move on to Fremi. You can just introduce yourself, where you're from, and your current role.
Hey, I'm Fremi. I live north of Atlanta, but all y'all need to know is Atlanta in Georgia. And I'm currently doing a contract position with a tax compliance company named Sovos. And I'm mostly doing front end. It's not even front end, it's just some CSS, but I love it because it gives me what I need to do as far as like, finances. It helps me out. So yeah.
That is awesome to hear from me. I always envisioned you as a front-end developer, so I love to see you going down that path. Let's go ahead next, and Tika.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tika. I am in New York City, and I work also remotely at a fintech called Amount. They're based in Chicago, and I'm a UI UX front-end developer.
Super cool, super cool. Also, I forgot to mention where I'm from, New York as well. Thanks for reminding me, Tika. Currently, right now, I'm in New Jersey, but hop back and forth. It's about 15 minutes. But let's hear it from, let's go to Arena.
Hey everyone, my name is Irina. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I'm an associate software engineer at Vault Health, which is a late stage telehealth startup company. I graduated from App Academy in August of last year, so it's still pretty fresh for me.
Awesome. And Vault Health, I know, is one of our partners, so that's super cool that you're working with them. All right, and last but not least, Safia.
Hi, everyone. So again, my name is Sophia. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I work as a web developer for a company known as Whitethorn Games, and they create cozy gaming. I actually work on the construction side. They're partnering with construction companies, so I work on the web development team on that side.
Awesome. All right, so to get things going bit, I will say anyone who is joining us today, do feel free to leave questions up in the chat. I will have chat open as people are answering questions. Feel free to drop things in the chat. I will try my best to catch all of them. And the things that we don't catch, we will have question time at the end, and we'll probably try to follow up with as many as we can. If not, we still will follow up with you at some point. But let's go ahead. So we have some questions here that we want to hear from you guys and your experiences through App Academy. So I'm just going to start asking questions to our panelists, and we can take turns answering them. But for the most part, I will just direct questions towards you guys, and we can work together to answer them. But let's start off with Megan. So Megan, can you give me a little backstory as to kind of what your career looked like before your App Academy journey? I know we all come from different places, different backgrounds. So what was yours like?
Sure. I have a master's in college counseling and student development, and I was working in higher ed before starting at App Academy. So for about 10 years, I worked at 4 different universities, mostly in volunteer programs, service learning programs for college students. And it's something that I did really enjoy, but I was starting to sense kind of that I'd hit my ceiling with that, kind of looking for opportunities to grow and learn and what could the future look like. And then, so I was already kind of considering a career pivot, hadn't really landed on what that might be. But then sort of mid-pandemic, our office was consolidated or eliminated, really. So it was kind of an opportunity at a time I didn't expect. But that's when I really kind of did some internal reflection and decided to pursue this career path. I had some input from folks who had done boot camps, and one of the pieces of advice that really stuck with me was get into the most competitive program that you can, because it will push you the farthest and the hardest. And that was one of the reasons that I went with App Academy. That's kind of how I got started there.
I hope you found your competitive and you found that at App Academy for sure. All right, so let's go with Tika. Can you tell me a little bit about your background before App Academy, Tika?
Sure, happy to. So before App Academy, I actually I got a BFA in dance at Marymount Manhattan College in the city. And so I used to dance. I also bartended part-time, or actually I was bartending full-time right before I started App Academy, and just teaching dance and all these different side jobs, I guess, just to get by. And, I was definitely looking for a career change, and I was always interested in math and science. So I was looking for ways to kind of see how I could get into that. And there was this course that I took in college that I really enjoyed, and that was the first time I kind of had touched software and math combined. So because of that course, basically I just started exploring coding, and I started really liking it. Then I actually ended up doing the bootcamp prep at App Academy, and I started researching on how to really get ready for a bootcamp and how to be able to pass how to just get into one. And I came across App Academy Bootcamp Prep, and so I applied. I got in, and it was in person actually at the time in 2020, I think, maybe 2019. I don't remember. So it was an in-person program, and I loved my TAs. We also did pair programming in the bootcamp prep, so I loved that. So I loved everything about it, and I ended up just only applying to App Academy afterwards, and I was super happy to get in.
Awesome, really cool backstory. It reminds me of someone else in the room. I think we have another dancer here. So let's flow right into our next panelist, Arena. If you can just talk about a little bit about what you were doing before App Academy. Love to hear.
What a segue. I was also a dancer and a dance teacher before pursuing this path. And I also did supplemental work in my case, it was in healthcare. But as Megan mentioned, in her case, there was a ceiling. So there's a definite ceiling with dancing, especially the kind of dancing that I'm doing. And I knew that it wasn't a very lucrative career path. I didn't want to have to rely on that. So I have been thinking about going down this path, attending a boot camp and pursuing software engineering for several years. But I did not have the opportunity to do so until mid-pandemic as well, because that was the first time I had a ton of free time. So I decided it's now or never. And I had so much anxiety and doubt going into it. I didn't think I'd be able to succeed. It was super, super scary taking the plunge. But I did, and I'm so happy that I did it, because now I don't have to rely on dancing to survive. I can do that because I love doing it. And I get to balance it out with a really great cerebral kind of a career path that has a much, much higher ceiling. That's a very brief review.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't think I've found the ceiling quite yet in this field. So let me know when someone does. But all right, let's move on to Sophia, if you can tell us a little bit about your background before all this.
Yes. So before coming to App Academy, I was working as a registered nurse. I worked for a neurosurgical floor, meaning I worked with patients who might have had some form of neurosurgical procedure. So that's my degree, my bachelor's. I have a dual degree in nursing. And actually, before going to nursing school at Emory University, I was studying biology and chemistry. So I also was a person who like really missed like that math and science creativity and problem solving in my career field, and was looking for that when I was making my career change. My sister was studying computer science at the time, and she told me a lot about coding and Code Academy. And once I learned about boot camps, I was all in. So that's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, so let's move on to Fremi. What was your background like?
Yikes. You know, I am somebody who has always been kind of like, just if I'm wanting to do something, I don't know, up until that point, I didn't keep a job for like longer than a year. It was like, I'm very like haphazard, and, you know, I was in a band at one point. I was going to school and was trying to go down the production route. I actually had recorded a pilot with Adult Swim, which is like in Atlanta. And then as soon as COVID happened, they're like, oh yeah, like the internship's not gonna happen. The place that you were gonna have like be doing this, they had like a web series, like we're closing that down. And I'm like, okay. So I was doing like a lot of odd jobs, like working as a dog walker, security, you know what I mean? And I had started a business during COVID with the government, you know, stimmy money. And it didn't really work out the way I wanted. And my mom was kind of like, you need something with more stability. And I was at the point in my life where I'm like, you know, I'm 28. I'm like, I need something to commit to. Like, I need to bust my ass, excuse my language, and, you know, really put energy towards something that I can finish. And I know I could do it as long as I like put my mind to it. So, you know, I literally signed up like in a day. I didn't really think about it. And then I did the thing, did the preliminary thing, and I just kind of stuck through it. So it was more of a commitment to myself. And you know, I share that story because there could be someone out there being like, I don't know, you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah, you were definitely an inspiration for me. Fremi, I had met, we started off in the same cohort, and I've never seen someone so determined to keep going. She was such an inspiration for me. So it was a great impact for my education as well. So much respect for you, Fremi. Love to hear your backstory. Oop, muted myself. All right, so I think we covered everyone's backstory. So I'm not missing anyone, right? Yeah, we did. Yeah. All right. So to move on to our next question, I'm going to individualize these a little bit. So I'm going to ask Megan, what would you say is the best and the worst part of the course that you've experienced in App Academy? Very opinionated, but I would still love to hear what you got here.
Sure. Well, I guess I'll start with the more challenging parts so I can end with the parts that were great. The challenging parts, it is a lot of content really fast. You know, that's to be expected, and it's not anything revelatory to share with everyone, but that's just something, it really is a lot. And maybe paired with that, I learned how to take care of myself better and how to manage my stress and perfectionism better. I still want to grow in that area. I am by no means an expert now, but it was really hard for me at first to struggle so much, so often. And I would get there like at the very last second. You know, you have those weekly assessments, and I did the online program, and oftentimes right up until Sunday night, it's like, there is no way I am gonna make it. and you just, okay, I've got that relief. I barely got by. All right, let's jump into a brand new topic now. So it's just, it is a lot. It's a long time to have that kind of constant, have your brain on constantly like that. And so learning how to manage that was probably the biggest challenge. And for my spouse too, who is a wonderful, supportive spouse. But yeah, that was also a lot for him to go through for that time. Some of the best things were the folks who I connected with. Really, I would not have made it through without my team. So you know, thinking about my top advice would be to find your people. And you know, part of it for me was you know, allowing folks to support me. That was something that I had to kind of learn how to do better. Some really wonderful instructors. I see JD here with us. And just you know, some really great folks who I don't know, really are eager to invest in you. So yeah, I'll stop there. But those are some of the probably biggest challenges and things that I love.
Thank you, Meg. I think we can all resonate with those exact words. Don't know what I'd do without my support system. But all right, so can we hear from Irina? So you're currently now in Vault Health. You are in the tech world, right? So do you have anything to say in terms of what it's like being a female in a male-dominated field now?
That's a great question. And I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that one. Because I gotta say, Vault is a really wonderful place to work. I feel like I got really lucky where I don't feel much of a difference being a woman in a heavily male-dominated field. Especially like it's very obvious that the management is balancing out the ratio. So they're hiring a ton of women. I get to work with a lot of women. I get to be inspired by a lot of women on my teams. I see senior software engineer, female senior software engineers who are managers as well. And I just have a lot of really good examples that I can follow. And everyone is great, kind, progressive. So I don't have any negatives to say in that area.
Well, weren't you a lucky one?
No, I'm a lucky duck.
That's lovely to hear. Do any of my panelists who are in the field now, so does anyone have a good answer? Maybe someone who's in a more male-dominated company. Does anyone have that current experience now?
I think I can talk a little bit about that. So when I first started working on my team, I was the only woman and person of color actually on my team, I would say. But what I think was great about it, I am considered a leader. I'm one of the only developers that is very comfortable with React. So because of that, I do feel like people really do support me. They really do value me because of my skills. So, but yes, definitely coming from nursing, where it's female like predominant to this male predominant field, it was very interesting to see, but it's been very positive, I will say.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Tika, I wanted to ask you, roughly how many hours per day were you putting in during the program?
Many. So I guess like the best thing I can say about that, it's a lot of hours. I think class started at 9, it ended at 6. It was like 1 hour break, I think total, or maybe hour and 15 minutes. So, you know, you're coding already every day. And then I would just take an hour for dinner after class had ended. And then after that hour, I would just go back to studying so from the beginning, I was definitely really bad with stopping. I would just go until maybe 1 a.m., 2 a.m. sometimes, because, you know, there's so much material. I felt like I needed to get it all done. There's a lot of homework that is front loaded, but I they tell you it's front loaded and you don't have to stay up late. But I just wouldn't listen from the beginning. And I actually felt myself kind of getting burnt a bit. So I definitely had to learn my lesson with that and kind of slow down, take a step back and say, okay, at 11 p.m., I'm just going to go to sleep. I've done my best all day, and I will be fine. But that definitely came with time. It was long hours every day.
Lemma, Arena, and
Andrew, you are not muted. Thank you.
So yeah, that was my experience. And even on the weekends, I would say I studied at least 8 hours a day.
Thank you for sharing that, Tika. Yeah, just about realized maybe 2 months in that I was actually burning myself out as well, and it's actually doing more damage than good. So it definitely is about finding that right balance. But okay, so do any of my panelists suffer or suffered from this lovely thing we had, which was imposter syndrome? Arena, you're shaking your head like you know exactly what that feels like. So do you want to touch upon this?
Sure, but I have a question. Did anyone not experience imposter syndrome? I feel like
Yeah, I mean, that's
we all kind of went through together. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I still go through it. I think that's very common, no matter what the subject is and no matter how long you've been doing it. I mean, I've been a dancer for 12 years now and I still get imposter syndrome with dancing. It's definitely an internal thing.
So for people that don't know what imposter syndrome is, do you want to give them a quick brief sum up of what imposter syndrome is?
It's when you feel like you're not qualified to do the job that you were hired for, or really whatever you're doing, you don't feel like your level is where it should be, based on your experience, something like that.
Yeah, no, that's just about it. That's exactly. I know even like when you're starting off, you feel like you're not making any progress in learning. I know my first exposure to imposter syndrome was definitely the beginning. I was clueless what was going on week 1, 2, 3, just drowning. And you feel like you're not making any progress, but you really are making a lot. You just don't acknowledge
Absolutely.
it.
Yeah. And it's, sorry, go ahead.
How do you deal with that?
Oh, that's a great question. I think stepping outside and getting a different perspective is really helpful because it's so easy, especially when you're going through a course like App Academy where you're constantly getting drowned in new material that you're constantly playing catch up, trying to learn everything. It's easy to get stuck feeling like you don't know anything because you don't get a chance to look back and practice what you have done up to that point a little more. But if you like talk to people from a different cohort and you see like they ask you questions and you see that you're able to actually answer those questions and you do know something, getting that outside perspective, I think, is really helpful. Understanding that you actually have come quite a ways. And also there's something that I've been trying out, which is there's a post on Reddit about how instead of thinking of imposter syndrome, switch up your thinking and imagine that you have a con man syndrome instead. So you're here because you conned your way into it and you're happy to keep conning. This is just a way to like trick your brain into believing that you actually deserve to be here.
Definitely going to use that from now on. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Definitely one for the books. All right. So Fremi, I wanted to ask you, in terms of networking within the tech space. So I know you were a blossoming angel in terms of networking through our cohorts and networking afterwards through LinkedIn and whatnot. So can you share us a little bit about your story in terms of how you kind of put yourself out there and networked?
Well, I had a friend who had done another boot camp and they had let me know, they're like, LinkedIn, that's how I got my current job right now, was through, just being social and talking. But they said LinkedIn has like this algorithm that once you get past 500, you start to show up in searches. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool. I'm gonna make sure that I can get that. So I continued like every single day, just making sure I'd add 20 people that I felt like specific. I have like probably 75% women on my, you know what I mean, on my in my LinkedIn, because I'm just like, if you're female and you're in tech, I'm trying to get to know you, you know. Also, something that I feel like I learned through Twitter, I'm not Twitter, LinkedIn, was Twitter. There's a lot of like really progressive like tech spaces on Twitter. And I got an interview through Twitter actually. And just I learned a lot about like what people were doing, like good ways to like approach people. There was a lot of free resources, people who were literally just handing out referrals and stuff. So I would say get you, you know, minus full stack softy if you want to come follow me. But yeah, get a Twitter. Definitely if you're doing it, like even if you're in the beginning, start a LinkedIn and just start like talking to people. There's like a few people I don't necessarily mentor, but there's like women that I talk to who are also now going through boot camp. And I'm just like, just talk to me about your experiences, and like we share, sometimes we video chat and everything. So, and you know, I've met so many great people. There was a little freelance job I picked up, and I met this person who lives in Texas, and we did it together. And he didn't, you know, he didn't ask for any payment or anything. I did end up buying his son a gift. But you know, it was really, really cool. And I totally feel you, Arena, on the as far as the conning. I did want to say something in regards to that. During App Academy towards the end, when I'm just like, I just kept telling it's gonna be easy. Even though it wasn't, I was just like, oh, it's gonna be easy. I literally would trick my brain into being like, okay, we got this. So same with social media. If you're shy, if you're somebody who doesn't like to talk, like, I'm not going to say this in any way, but like everything's all pretenses there. You can literally just be like, hey, I really like something. And it's all small talk. You can creep on LinkedIn. That's what you're supposed to do. You can be like, hey, I see that 2 years ago you worked in this. Can you tell me more about that? And they'll start talking to you. And then you just build that repertoire, just things that are actually really interesting. So yeah, don't be scared, and it really will help you. You know, I got mine through a referral, and I'm sure I'll get some more just through just knowing so many people on there. Yeah.
Definitely. It's only up from here, right? All right. So Tika, I want to ask you, so I know I experienced this in the beginning, and anytime I meet any students coming in here, their first question to me is always, how much experience did you have prior to App Academy? So I know within my cohort, some people came in with a computer science background, a little intimidating for me. I came in with no tech background, just my few months of preparation prior to the course. So I wanted to ask you, like, a lot of people have this idea that in order to start coding, you have to start really early in your childhood, or you have to have had some kind of prior education in it. So what is your take on that? And if you can just tell us a little bit about where you were. Were you experienced prior? Were you a beginner?
I was not experienced at all, just like you, I guess. I prepped, like my bootcamp prep that I did at App Academy was my only preparation, basically. I had started like very basic CSS and JavaScript course on my own prior to the bootcamp prep. And you know, I was just so busy, it was very hard to keep up with it. So that's exactly why I wanted to do the bootcamp prep, which was a month course. So that was really just all I had prior to starting App Academy. So it was definitely scary. And as I started my cohort, just like your experience was, mine was the same. I had a lot of people in my cohort that did have CS background, or they had kind of coded on their own for a while. But then there were many others that were same exact, they had no experience as me. So it was definitely a good mix of both, or in betweens. And that's what kind of kept me going. But you definitely don't need any prior experience. Can it be slightly more stressful? Maybe it was for me, for sure, from my personal experience, since I didn't have anything, but it was doable. I did it, everybody else can.
Beautiful. And just a tally from our panelists here, did any of you have some kind of like background in tech or experience with coding prior? No, from Marina, very little from Fremi. Sophia, how about you? Nope. Okay, so that's just full-on proof that you don't need to have some prior experience there, but it does surely help. Let's just say that. But okay, so Sophia, I want to ask you, through your experience with App Academy, what was the job search for you? What was the kind of support you received from App Academy? Can you touch upon that for a little bit?
Yes. So during the job search, I had a technical coach, and I remember we would work together like 3 times a week. We would have meetings, one to like just check in, and then she hosted a meeting for everybody to like pair program together. And then like we did another meeting a week where we would like focus on an algorithm and like build projects together. I had lots of resume support, interview support. So I felt like I got tremendous support during the coaching and job career search.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I remember during my job search phase, because I expected, coming into App Academy, the career phase part was part of the entire package of joining App Academy, and I was very intrigued by that. And I knew we were going to get that kind of support, but honestly, I kind of might have underestimated how much support would actually be given. It was almost annoying how much support. It was definitely something that I knew that there was definitely going to be support because it was advertised, but I really didn't think it was going to be to that degree. So I'm glad that happened, because it definitely was something that I was not expecting. So it was really cool to know that you really, really do get that support here. But let's move on. And Megan, what piece of advice would you give incoming students?
I think connecting with your people, like I had mentioned before, is such an important thing, and what that practically looks like, maybe, or what it looks like for me anyway, when you pair program with folks, which is pretty much every day, you just kind of get a sense for, okay, I drive really well with this person. You can reach out to them, maybe do some work over the weekend, like, hey, we were making some good headway on this project, but we didn't finish it today. Do you want to pick this back up on Saturday? And that's a good way to build relationships. And yeah, I think just being, for me, there was a little bit of being willing to be, or learning how to be vulnerable and connect with folks. And then also challenging myself when I knew I had something to contribute, even if it wasn't 100% perfection and I knew everything, I could still contribute in that moment. That was probably one of the harder things for me. Yeah, kind of those two things. I will also say it's okay to defer. I don't know if this team of folks are familiar with deferrals, but how you take the assessments every week. If you don't pass the assessment, then you go back and join the cohort behind you a month. I deferred on week 6 of the program. And I'll tell you, like, every week leading up to that point, I felt like I was slowly just hanging on by my fingernails to pass those assessments. And it felt so hard, and I was so stressed. And when I deferred, I felt like I could catch up from that point. Like, there was just something about my brain needed a little bit more time for certain things to sink in, and then I could keep up, and then I could take care of myself better. I cried. Like, I was so sad because I had like started to find my people, and I was like, oh no, I won't find my people again, but I did. Wonderful people. And it was all okay. It was actually so much better for me that happened. So putting that out there, that's a possibility, and it can be the best gift for your learning process. If you find yourself in that situation, I hope that could, be an encouragement for you. Yeah. And I think the only other thing I had made a little note about for this question was that it's also okay to connect outside of App Academy from the beginning. Now, I think I had a little bit of, take the feedback that works for you, yourself and what you can manage and all of that. And I'd had different feedback on this, like, wait to do anything career-wise until after the program. And that's okay if that's where you need to focus. But I know I connected with our local Code for America chapter that we have here in Nashville, Code for Nashville. And I approached them, I said, I know nothing. I don't know what GitHub is that you're talking about. I don't know anything at all. but is there something that I can do? And they actually had me like start managing a project that they had going on, because I have project management experience, but it was just helping people like stay on task with things. So it was just like checking in with people and managing volunteers, which is stuff I had done before. I did not continue that while I was in App Academy. I was not able to do that. But I was able to build relationships that right after App Academy, and now I can jump back in and know some folks. And so I don't want to send the message of like overload yourself and panic about networking. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying you can build relationships with folks now through LinkedIn or your local community, nonprofits, that you can then, you have that strength of relationship built now, so that later, there may be opportunities that present themselves or mentors available for you as you start your first career. So yeah, those are the few notes I had on that one.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing. Those were definitely very, very important factors to App Academy and post App Academy. So thank you for that. I'm sure someone will find it helpful. But okay, so Arena, I wanted to ask you, so as a bootcamp grad, how prepared did you feel when you like started looking for work? Can you give us a little insight as to how you felt after graduation?
Yeah, I never prepared. I never felt prepared. I never felt prepared for any stage in this process. I did not feel prepared when I first applied to App Academy. I didn't feel prepared when I started in my cohort. Did not feel prepared when I graduated or when I got the job. And I still am working on that. So I think it's really important to realize that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to know everything to be able to get a job or to be able to get into this boot camp, right? It's okay to just have a drive to learn and to just be a good student, to keep an open mind and to work at it. Honestly, I think that's the best way to go about it. And there's no need to wait to apply to a job until you feel like you can nail every single interview, because the interviews are also practice for the future interviews, right? So you could start interviewing immediately and get comfortable with them. And you never know, you might get hired in the first couple of jobs that you apply for. So I think it's important to not get hung up on being perfect and not feeling ready, because you might never feel ready, but you might actually be ready.
Okay, beautiful. So I'm just going to follow up with that. So based on what you said, I could tell that post-graduation, going to job search, you were definitely experiencing imposter syndrome, where you just didn't feel like you were that ready for
all the time.
The companies you were faced with and the interviews we were attending. So seems like that was definitely imposter syndrome. But based on like what you feel like you learned from App Academy and the technologies you were taught, how prepared do you think that curriculum that you learned and gained from App Academy prepared you for the reality of what was like required from the companies you're interviewing with and what was found in the job descriptions? How prepared did you feel with what you knew in terms of material for that reality?
Gotcha. Thanks for clarifying.
No worries. What you said was valid too. It definitely was. It was just more so like, I also want to know how you feel about the material itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like more so than just the materials that I learned, we learned so much. It's incredible how much we were able to learn in such a short amount of time. But I feel like what was more valuable was learning how to learn and how to pick up, I can see that we're all in agreement on this, how to pick up new technologies, how to keep pushing if you feel stuck, how to research and how to study and work on projects to solidify that knowledge. So I feel like that is the most important takeaway for me, because a lot of the jobs I applied for didn't have all the technologies or had used different technologies than I was used to, but it didn't matter. They still brought me on for interviews because they knew that coming from App Academy, I would be coachable. I'd be able to pick up technologies. So App Academy is fantastic in that just getting drowned in all that information and having to swim out of it it prepares you for the real world of picking up and being able to implement new technology.
Definitely. And even Fermi just said right now in the chat, become an expert Googler, which is a fact. This is what we all experience. Fermi, you want to touch upon that a bit? I see your hands up.
Yes. So I feel like something that my mom told me, she's also in tech, she's a systems programmer, and she says being a woman in tech, too often we feel like we have to have everything perfect because we already have this idea that we might not be able to live up to all the other expectations that have come from us. And she told me, like, a lot of the men she sees in their field, they won't know anything. They just have the confidence, they go in, they get the interview, and they keep working. And not to say that they don't have the ability, it's just, I had to realize when, you know, like Arena was saying, like I had to con myself into being like, I can do any job, I can get anywhere, you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like definitely that was something that I felt like during because, you know, I don't have a traditional, I don't have a, you know, a lot of my friends, you know, were electrical engineers or working for big financial companies, and I'm just kind of like, man, how do I even compete in this field, you know, that is expecting me to be not only technical, but, you know, have something to give. And I realized even my background and just all the things I were doing was going to allow me to do that. And the only other thing I would say that we only spend a week on, but y'all really need to know, is data structures and algorithms. Go ahead, go ahead when you start doing it, maybe once a week, you know, give yourself a data structure and algorithm so you're able to start thinking that way. Because when you're under pressure and when you're, you know, interviewing, that can really get to you. So yeah, that's my little 2-piece.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So this is definitely a question I wish I heard as many people as we have today explain to me prior to my entry into App Academy. I did have some great guidance from some friends who already graduated from App Academy, but it was also years back, and I didn't know if it was going to be the same curriculum, which it wasn't. But Sophia, can I ask you if you were to give advice to a student that was coming into App Academy? So they were trying to get in, so they're still like in the process of admitting, I guess the preparation stage, so to say. What advice would you give them?
Yes, I would say start studying free resources, because there's so many free resources out there. And I know App Academy, they have like their own free curriculum that you can look at. So I definitely would encourage people to look into that. With YouTube, look at all of these YouTubers out there who are software engineers, and they really go into detail about what it's like to be a software engineer, and really assess for yourself, is this something you can see yourself doing long term, as well as being a part of this boot camp. It is intense learning, and you know, kind of just be kind to yourself and making sure that, is this what you want to do, or is there something, maybe there's another approach, because not everybody, you know, does boot camp, but there's other ways around it as well. So
yeah, I definitely think that's a very important factor, you know, just in that preparation stage, try to do as much as you can to really see if this is for you. Because I know, I think Fremi, you kind of related this. Someone mentioned that I think it was Tika, where my career was kind of dwelled in a bunch of different things. And I kind of just had a lot of different hobbies. So I kind of made careers out of them, but they were never really full careers. So I was afraid that coding was going to be one of those things that I kind of just liked and I dabbled in. And I spent a lot of time kind of dabbling in it in the prior stage to actually get into App Academy, just to make sure that, you know, this was for me. So I think that is a really good point you brought up. So let's go over, let's see. Okay, so Megan, I want to ask you, what advice would you give women specifically who are looking for a job in the tech field? Any advice you'd give them?
It's a great question. I think connecting with mentors and other folks who are in the field is a really great thing to do. to be able to, I think kind of like what Remy was mentioning, being able to talk through what you're experiencing is really helpful. Seeing what other people are doing and being able to kind of picture yourself in that place. And connecting with something I appreciate and still follow with the App Academy Slack channel. One of like the kind of different diversity groups. They're also in LinkedIn and things like that. Because I'm also, you know, as much as I hold, you know, minority identities, I also hold, you know, privilege, a lot of privilege, and where I need to be also checking myself if I'm going to be a good ally, kind of in other areas of tech. It's not, you know, for me, just about how can I like improve my experience for myself as a woman in tech, but how can I be advocating for all voices, I guess, and recognize my own blind spots too. So anyway, I think learning kind of all of these different systems that affect people is really important. And so learning resources is what I'm getting at with that. There are LinkedIn groups, there are lots of great Medium articles, just kind of to be doing that unpacking work within myself or within ourselves. So yeah, finding mentors, connecting with groups of other similar people, and learning about how identities other than just kind of female non-binary identities experience the tech world would be important. Felt like that got rambly. Sorry for that. The thoughts off the top of my head there.
Great. Thank you so much, Megan. All right. So I do have a final question I want to close off with. But before I ask this question, I will ask if there is anyone who does have any questions here for myself or any of the panelists here. Now would be a good time to drop it in the chat so we can try to cover it right now. So if you do have those questions, go right in. But I will go ahead and ask my panelists our closing questions while we wait for any questions to trickle on in. So Sophia actually just asked a question. What is the age range of people who attend App Academy? Okay, so don't have any direct numbers and statistics I can pull up out of my pocket unless Heather does, but I can just share my experience. And we can even go through the panelists right now. So Heather says median age is around 25. So I'm 23. Panelists, if you want to go ahead, just shout out your ages so we can get an idea of what we got going on here.
27.
27, cool.
28.
228.
I'm 28. I put it in the chat too.
328. Ooh, 30, 36.
I'm turning 28.
Okay, we got a whole bunch of numbers here. But yeah, so I guess the medium is around 25, Sophia, to answer your question. All right, so my closing question was actually going to be, okay, Kayla, let's go with this. Was there any strategies to learning that you implemented to help you most while learning App Academy's curriculum? I would say me personally, the strategies were definitely actually coding and less reading. So for me, I was a bit of a perfectionist where I would want to like read as much because this was also the imposter syndrome trickling on in where I felt like I was not ready to code yet. I was not ready to take on the project we were doing that day. So I would try my best to read as much, but that is definitely not the case. You just want to go ahead, code, trial, error, code, trial, error, code, and learn along the way. Fremi, you have something you want to touch upon that?
Yes, specifically to that, I think something that you continually learning is like how you learn. And I think for me, I really had to trust myself because I was listening to way too many people like, try this, do this, which honestly, that's what we're doing right now. But you have to like sit there after you get that information and see like what works for you. And because you have a test every week, you're able to see like, okay, what didn't work for you? I did defer in the second week and I'm like, okay, me closing off and not talking to anyone was not working for me. Like I have to go and pair program, and I have to be, even though I feel like they're wasting their time and they're ahead of me and they're not, all that was my own internal stuff. So I had to really learn myself. And I think that's the biggest thing, like know yourself and trust your instinct more than anybody else's.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a very good point. You will be hearing so many things from different angles, from your family, from your cohort mates, from instructors. Definitely listen to yourself, because only you know what works for you. So definitely tune into that. And that's a great point for me. I'm glad you brought that up. But Henry also brings a great point that I think we all had to remind ourselves, which was to take breaks and to look, where did he put, look into a good monitor timer. Yeah, that's definitely something that is very, very important. We always want to cram in as much and not take breaks. We're human, we're not robots. But Tala has a question. How did the financial responsibility for the program affect you after completion? So financial responsibility, Tala, as in like the paying back App Academy. Can you just clarify that a little bit? As paying back App Academy. Okay, so some people I'm sure paid up front. I personally didn't pay up front. I was part of the ISA program, so it was a payback. So it was definitely something that you kind of calculate with whatever salary you end up making in the first job you take. So it's calculated to kind of give a reasonable amount of monthly payment that's being taken away from your paycheck every month. So it definitely is, income share agreement. Thank you, Heather. So that is definitely something that is an agreement in terms of making sure that you're paying them back. And also, I think it's quite reasonable in terms of what works with how much you're making and your income. So not everyone's is the same. Anyone else want to add anything into that? Any panelists?
Yeah, I think it's a great program, the income share agreement or deferring your tuition, because you're not going to get charged at all until you get that first job. And then they will work with you. So if you end up losing the job for whatever reason, or you decide that it's not for you and you want to leave, they are going to put those payments on hold. And after 3 years, whether or not you were able to complete your payments or fulfill the amount, you're not going to get charged farther if nothing's changed. That's what it was in the contract. So that, knowing all of that, made me feel really comfortable taking the plunge, because there was nothing sketchy about it. It was very straightforward. This is what we're going to do, and you're still going to have an income.
Definitely, and Fermi just brought it to your attention, temporary contracts are also on hold. So Fermi, you mean by that, like if you're working with like contractors?
Yeah, my contract was like is like only about 3 or 4 months, and so they gave me a hold where I'm not only am I not expected to pay, I'm not doing the the job search, which is pretty intense. You guys think you're gonna get a break after boot camp? No, you got job search. And so I was able to take a break on that until like this contract ends. So that's also really cool and flexible of App Academy.
All right, awesome. I personally didn't even know that, so that's new news to me. That's good to hear. On average, how long was the job search? Pretty much. So on average, I would say statistically, I would say about 6 months on average for the whole. But I know we all came from different time periods. If we want to just go through the panelists, how long did it take you to get your first job?
It was about a month or two.
Month or two?
It took me about a year. I also had graduated as COVID hit. So it was definitely harder in terms of looking for a job, as well as with family things going on. But my coach was definitely really great with working with me and, applying to as many jobs as I could. And basically, if I had to deal with anything else, it was totally okay. Everything was flexible. So in my own time, once I actually really started focusing on job search, then I would say it probably took me like 3 to 4 months.
It took me 6 months.
6 months. Okay. And Megan, I know Megan, how long did it take you after graduation?
Well, I have a very unusual situation. So I actually started my job the Monday after our graduation because of it was the connection that I already had with the place I'm working. I will say too, it's not especially high paying job. And there are things that I missed out on not having gone through the great resources that App Academy offers for the job search process. But getting that first job is kind of tough. So for me, talking with my spouse about it, and we kind of looked at the benefits of jumping into a job, getting that first job outweigh some of the challenges of it. So it was a very quick, unusual time for me, and it's very unusual. And there are some benefits to it and some drawbacks. But yeah, anyway, if anyone has questions about that later, I don't need to drag that out, but that was mine.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I know definitely for everyone, it's like that first leap of the first job. It's like we want to be picky with it, but then we also need a job. So we go into whatever is there. But I firmly believe that, the where you start is only stepping stone from where you go after that. So from that experience, you definitely know what you won't be doing again and what you will be changing in terms of what you're seeking. So it definitely is all part of the learning experience of where to go and how to get better. But okay, okay, so let's cover this one last question. And then any other questions that we weren't able to answer today, feel free to still ask them, and we will definitely follow up with you guys and still be able to answer them. So what coding languages do each of you guys use most in your day-to-day? Okay, so like Irina had mentioned, I think you had mentioned the job you're working for now in fall, you're not fully utilizing the technologies that you learned at App Academy. You kind of learn new ones.
I am using a lot of the same
cool.
technologies,
Okay.
but there are
yeah.
also a lot of new technologies for me. So the language that I'm using the most is Python. We use that in the back end, and then we use JavaScript on the front end. So thankfully, those I am familiar with the languages.
And for me, you said you're using mostly CSS now, which we know we all love CSS.
Ooh, girl, I did not like CSS before this.
This is the sarcasm. This was coming out.
Yeah. So I'm doing legacy. At first they use C# to make there. So I had to like not really learn, but like go through C#. But then we had to go and I'm pretty much reskinning their entire portal, which is a lot, and at first we were doing it where we were working with HTML and some CSS. Now we're just doing strictly Sass, which is like a compiling form of CSS. And it's not hard to learn. Like, that's the thing. Once you start to learn these things and you go and look at something else, it's really not hard to pick it up. So I'm mostly working with Sass. That's what I do for the most part. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Yeah, she brought up a great point. Once you are proficient in one language, it is very easy, Kayla, to pick up other languages. So just master one, and you can continue learning from that point on your own, much easier. Yeah, Henry just said, I learned Ruby after graduating. AA teaches you how to learn, which is the most important thing that you get out of AA, I think. They really teach you how to learn. But yeah, so that was awesome, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us today in this panel. It was awesome to hear about your stories. I'm really, really grateful that you guys were able to join us today. Thank you for everyone else who joined us today. I hope you guys enjoyed. And if there are any other questions that you guys may have, feel free to always reach out and you'll be able to follow up with us. And we are always there to answer your questions. So thank you so much. And I wish you guys all the best. And my females, keep going. I love to see it. But yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, Lemma. It was good to see everyone.
So nice to see you guys. So many familiar faces. Nico, Simon, great having you here. All right.
Thank you, Lemma. I'm gonna see you around. Hit me up if you ever need another panelist or anything. And I'm gonna be hitting you up with an app I'm building with another AA cohort that I think could actually help AA. So kind of building it for AA. Maybe they'll buy it. I don't know.
Maybe try it out. Let's see. We're always open to things. We love to see. We love to see it. But you know where to reach me.
Okay. Bye, everybody. Feel free to add me on LinkedIn. Everybody, anybody you want to talk, even the panelists. I would love to, to hit you up. So, all right. Bye,
Absolutely, we'll add you.
Thank
Thanks,
you
everyone.
for everyone who joined, and thank you to my panelists. I will see you around, and hopefully we're aiming to have another panel at some point. So if you didn't get to ask questions this panel, there may just be another. So thank you guys and have a lovely night.
Thank you for having us.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.